Welcome. Today we're going to be covering how to get used to our watercolor set. And I want you to take close attention as I go through a couple things. First of all, not in your packet is a palette like this. Many of you won't have a painting palette. That's okay. You can use the top of your box for a few colors, or I would highly recommend getting a plastic plate, like a throwaway plate, or a plastic cover like a large yogurt container cover, or if you have plastic containers for eggs, you can use them. And when your paint dries on these, you can keep it, just put it aside, and the next day you can use those same colors again just by adding a little bit of water. So one of the benefits of you painting at home, because we don't have to clean up every second, right, at the end of every class. Now, you're going to want to lay your stuff out depending on which hand you paint or draw with. So if you're left-handed, all your stuff is going to go on the left side. If you're right-handed, all your stuff is going to go on the right side. You're going to need a little triangle set up like I have here. Your watercolor set should go above your color wheel you're working on. Your palette should go off to the right. Underneath all of it should be 3 or 4 layers of paper towel folded up, right? And you should have a cup that's dedicated to this. This cup I don't use anything except painting for, because the paint is semi-toxic. You're not supposed to eat it. And so you don't want to use a cup that you'll then drink or eat out of. So find a plastic, party cup, or some glass you're going to recycle, or a cup no one ever uses anymore, and write on it, "No more food," right? So that you remember. Then in your packet, you're going to have 3 brushes, a small, a medium, or large. They may not look like this one because we had to really stretch to get over 300 brushes out to you guys, right? So yours may look different than mine, but you should have a small, a medium, and a large one, right? And then you're going to need a piece of scratch paper, a tester to test your colors on, right? All right, so we're ready to go. The first thing we're going to do is I've put my primary colors on here, red, yellow, and blue. And as you remember when we went through the slides on color, we have secondary colors. So red and blue make violet or purple, whichever one you want to call it. Yellow and labeling my secondary colors. Then we have green, my favorite color, for the third secondary color. And then we're going to be very respectable as we add our intermediate colors. We're going to always think of our primary color as the most important, and we will label this one yellow green, this one yellow orange, always putting our primary first and then our secondary. You may have seen these on colored pencils before, labeled this same way. And I'm going around labeling each one of them with my primary color first and my secondary color last. And my last one, blue-green, beautiful color. All right, they're all labeled. Now I'm going to set my pencil aside. Now I'm going to start mixing colors. You cannot take it directly out of here. I will know the difference. You will need to move your paint onto your paint palette. The purpose of this assignment is not only for you to learn how to do these colors, for you to learn how to use your paint palette, which I'm going to be showing you today. If you don't do that, then when we get to the next and the next 2 other assignments, you'll be in doo-doo because you won't know how to use a palette where you're putting bunches of colors, right? So if you have a palette like this, or you're using the top, or you're using this and a plate, or whatever it is, you need to put it on there and not straight out of this. Watercolor is all about controlling the amount of water that goes onto the paper with the paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put a drop of water on each one of these. You might notice my cup is 2/3 full. It's a good idea to do that so that when you have to shake your brush, you don't mistakenly splash. You don't want to get it too full, and you don't want it so small that you're okay. Your water gets dirty right away. Okay, so here we go. I've started. I think I'll start with red here. I'm going to take some red. I'm going to go around in a circle with my brush in the, well, this time it's a square, but in the paint section. And when it's loaded like this, then I'm going to come over to the side. I'm going to scrape my brush on the side edge of the thing, or if you're doing it here, it'll be across this little wall or along this side, right? Or your edge of your plate, right? So that some of the paint comes down into the little trough like this. If you're like, oh my God, I can't live without this little pad of Joann's and whatever for like $1, right? All right, so here we go. I've got that in, and now I'm going to test it to see what it looks like. And it seems a little bit light to me when I look at it, so I'm going to take my brush around in a circle one more time, add a little bit more, scrape it off at the side. While I do that, I'm rotating my brush back and forth like we did our pencil. Now it's a little bit darker. That's good. I think I want just a teensy bit more, so I'm going to add one more drop of water to this. I'm going to come around, going around it, rotating in a circle around the edges. I'm not poking with my brush, otherwise it'll get into the brush all the way up into here, and it'll be hard to get out. It'll discolor other colors. All right, now I like that one. So now I'm going to load it up on my picture. And when I do that, I'm not going to worry so much about whether I have a puddle in a place or not. Watercolor's like that. That's one of the beautiful things about watercolor. If it happens to get a puddle, that's okay. All right, so now I've done red. I'm going to do orange. You might notice orange is a little dirty on mine, right? If you have that happen, you can clean it out some by putting a little bit of this on it and then putting it onto your palette. You could just save whatever color that is for later. It's working in my benefit right now. There we go. That's pretty nice. Maybe a teensy bit more water. All right, so now I'm going to add my orange. And coming along here, you want to make sure you don't get your hand in the other part and smear it all over the place. All right, you're welcome to switch to your middle brush after you're finished mixing. I've just got really quick hands and I'm pretty good at this after a while, and you guys might need it. So I rinse my brush out after I finish painting a section every time before I go into another one because I don't want to contaminate it. Next one is red orange. So red is going to be more aggressive than orange because it has yellow in it. Yellow is the wussiest color on our whole entire palette. You have to use a ton of it to overcome any of these other ones because it's a very weak color. It gets overrun by others. So I'm going to add the red in small amounts to my orange. So there, I put 2 drops in and I'm almost there already. Maybe one more drop. And I've got a red-orange going on now. I'm going to put that in here. Now, your goal is to go all the way around your piece. I'm going to do 2 more, right? If your yellow is dirty, remember, you can take your brush and roll it across top like this, pick up some of the dirt, put it in over here so that you can use that color for something else later and clean it up. Oops, I threw some yellow in the green. So that could be the same thing. I could just roll my brush across it and pick it up. Luckily, mine wasn't that dirty. I tried to make sure people had good ones. Never a brush like from the red to the yellow because it'll totally contaminate. You always want to rinse out before you get to the yellow. Let's see if this is thick enough. Yes, it is. It's almost too thick. I think I'm going to put another drop of water in here and then test it out. All right, so putting on the yellow. Now sometimes what will happen is you'll put a coat of the yellow on and you'll realize it's too thin. You know, watercolor is supposed to be transparent. That means you're supposed to be able to see the paper through it. It's actually your white. However, if it's so thin that all right, so next up is our yellow orange. As you can see, as it's starting to dry here on the red, it's getting a little bit of a water tinge to it. If it gets any bigger than this, then you're using too much water. It still should look vibrant. You see, as the yellow is starting to dry here, it's starting to stay fairly vibrant. If yours gets really super light, like it did here on the tester compared to this, you want to maybe put a second coat on. You can always add more coats to things in watercolor, but you can't take away, so it's a good idea to kind of stay a little conservative, right, when it comes to that. All right, so let's put on our, you're going to need to work your way all the way around this, filling them all in and mixing them all on the side. Working your way all the way around your piece, filling them in so they're nice and vibrant, but you can still see the paper underneath them. It shouldn't be so thick that you can't see the paper underneath, but it should have nice vibrant color to it. Here you can see on these, I think I had them a little bit watered down up here, and they're a nice thicker quality here. All right, finishing it off all the way around and keeping all your colors on the palette over here or on your plate or in your egg carton or whichever one you have, right, before, so that you can use them again in the next section. Now that we've finished our color wheel, we're ready to move and get our second sheet, which asks us to mix our own colors. This guy's getting a little bit full, so I'm just going to replace him, my tester, with another sheet of paper so I can have good places. You can see I've got my color wheel all. What I need to do is I need to put some warm colors in this section and some cool colors in this section. Remember, warm colors are colors that make you think of warm things like flower colors, the sun, fire, warm colors. Cool colors are you think cool, a cold ocean, a cool forest, dark browns and greens and things like that are cool colors. So you have to mix your own. So you don't want to use any of the ones that are in your color wheel here or any of the ones that are up here. You need to make your own. So I'm going to take this green that I have here, right? And I'm just going to mix a little bit of red with it. And it'll make a different color. I'll test it over here. It looks like a very dark forest. So that's a cool color. So definitely dark. It's like dark forest at night. There we go, a nice dark color. Now let's make a little bit different one. So if I take some blue, and that's why you keep all the extra colors. I could add a little bit of orange to it, see what happens. Test it up over here. Still kind of looks like one from the thing, so I'll add a teensy bit of red to it, see what happens there. Still kind of boring. Maybe I'll take a little bit of yellow to it, and you just want to keep mixing till you get something you like. This one reminds me of like a kind of lake color. Do that one. I could just take a little bit of this and add it to my yellow green and see what happens. All right, and see if is this a cool color or is this a warm color? Yellow, green, and red, violet go right on the cusp of it. This one could go a little bit towards the cool if I just put a little bit more green in it. Let's see. Yep, now I've got a pale green that would work, and it's not one of the ones from the color wheel, and it's not one from the color box, so that's 3 out of the 4. Let's do some warms so you can see how to do that. So take the warm. I can take another color, like a little bit of this red, and then I've got more of a red-orange. Maybe take a teensy bit of violet, mix it in with it, and now I've got a warmish kind of rust color. Kind of reminds me of rust anyway. Then I could add some red to it, and I could add a little bit of green, see what happens. And I've got, I don't know what this is, a little bit different color. It's kind of a warm, rusty color. Let's take a little bit of red, add it to here, and then just keep mixing a few colors together, see what you get. Test it up at the top and ask yourself, does it feel like a warm color or does it feel like a cool color? Is this kind of fiery looking, or is this like a flower, or is this like a forest or winter, right? And you want 6 of each. Then you need to do a warm brown. This is definitely a warmish brown. This is almost on the cool side. If it dries and it looks too cool, I'm almost feeling like this one is. You could let it dry, put a layer of red over the top of it, then it'll be even more warmer, right? Then you have to label them. If perchance your paint starts coming out on the edges so that it's looking like this, or remember our color wheel, it looks like this when it's drying. That means you're using a little bit too much water. Use it a little thicker so it stays in like this, right? And doesn't come out of the edges. If it's coming out from the edges, it's a little too thick. Then you want to label these guys. Let's see, we could title this one Forest and Lake Blue. Now, if you look at this one, I've come in and I've labeled quite a few of them, and I have found that you can come up with some really nice or some really yucky sayings, whichever one you think it reminds you of, and label them all and get them ready. And then your final sheet here is pretty easy. Now you want to remember you want to paint in each box whatever color it is, and you're learning about complementary colors, intensity, tint, and tone, which we went over on vocabulary, and painting in a little mini color wheel, and talking about different color theory, right? This one down here is going to be needed to be painted, this little landscape, in a triad color. So a triad color is one that goes in a triangle on the color wheel. So here we have violet, orange, and green, or you could go yellow, blue, and red, or you could go orange, blue, green, and red, violet. And there's one more, but I'm not going to go over it. All right, so you could pick a triad section for this and paint it in. Your choice on which one you want to do with it. Then on this one, you have to do an analogous color theme. Analogous color themes are colors that sit side by side each other on the color wheel. So here on your color wheel, you can see quite a few. You could do a section here, or you could make it a warm painting, or you could make it transition between a warm and a cool, all right? And paint them in with 3 or 4 colors that are the same. Now the greens can vary a little bit, right? So if you pick green, blue-green, yellow-green, you can mix up some other little things in them like orange or brown or something, get different colors, right? To kind of color it in. Let's take a look at one that's a little bit done here. And you can see on this one, we've gone in and we've used a orange, green, and kind of violet color to try and paint this guy in for a triad. All right, because these are the same as any other watercolor. If you get 2 areas wet next to each other, they smear. So in order to do this one, it's a good idea, like I start out, I did the water first, and then I come up here and paint a couple of these, and then after that come back and do another little section, and then come back and paint some of these. That way this doesn't smear all together into a big blob on you. Good luck. Now for cleanup. Once you have labeled and corner, make sure these are all labeled. Make sure to make up nice names for them. Finish this last piece, put your name in the corner. Make sure you've filled in all of these and painted them in nicely. Give them some time to dry so they don't smear. You're going to take your brushes to the sink. You're going to rinse them out with a little teensy bit of dish soap. Do that, just put your hand in the sink and go like this with it. A little bit of soap in your hand. And then you don't want to leave them all icky like this. You want to just take them and point them so that they point nice. All right? And you can set them aside for later. Don't put this under the water. That'll just make it all runny. It'll smear all together. It'll be a mess. If you want to click again, these guys can pop out, and you can just take them out, clean the box, and put it back in. Or you can leave the box dirty for the next time you use it, and then any of the paint you have mixed here is already pre-mixed. I'll just leave this sit aside on some table to dry out the rest of the way, and then all I have to do is add water, and I'm good to go. Remember to clean this guy out, right? And make sure no one else drinks out of it, right? You can keep this